back. So this lesson, what I want to do is kind of show you guys how we can change the image input so it doesn't get static like it is right now, and also how I have moved the metadata to the right side of the image. Not a big thing, but it might be annoying if it's not over there. I didn't want it below, I just thought this looked cooler. So if I kind of zoom in also, you'll notice that the image actually starts shrinking when I get to a certain size. That's also something we changed in this lesson. Now, notice right here that some of the changes I'm going to show you actually using a Git technique. So let's just try and have a look right here. I made the Git checkout 99, and then I added a bit of code right here to my setup. But the cool thing is I can actually have a look at what's the difference between this code I made locally and the Git that I just checked out, right? So I can make a difference check between these two versions right here. You'll do that by right-clicking the details component, going into Git and going into compare with same repository, and I'm almost certain that any tool you're using with Git can do the same thing for you. But I'm just using WebStorm right here, so that's the tool I have available. Now notice right here when I do that, I can easily get an overview about what's changed, and most of it you can see right here is just putting in some new liners right here and right here. You'll see that, new liner, new liner. This is the local version, this is the Git version. So I just added a few new liners as I'm looking downwards the page right here. Notice right here in between these two guys there's actually a change worth mentioning, and that is that I moved the image from here and actually pulled it down into a div down here, right? Now the div is actually necessary. Let me just try and show you first of all why the div is necessary. Right there, let me try and zoom now without the div, and you'll see things aren't going as I hope. Notice it pushes the text outside the edge of the card. So I'm not satisfied with that. So that's kind of why I added a div to kind of support this. Let's just try again. I just added the div again just to kind of show you that part. Now notice the text will be doing the pushing, and at some point again we'll get full space because of our beautiful way of pushing away the menu when things get too small. Sweet. So let's just get that back. So that's why the div is there. You have to put that in there to kind of avoid things pushing over the edge of the beautiful card we have. I'm mentioning beautiful a lot today. I'm just feeling beautiful. Okay, so the next thing I kind of added was the image right here. Now I just moved the image from here to here, and then I removed the matte card image. Notice that's gone right now. That was kind of a directive that was provided by Material Design, and I didn't want that anymore. So I removed it, and then instead I made my own set here that explains that the max width of the image is going to be 100%. So it cannot take more than 100% on what's being given to it, right? So in this case, the div decides what's the maximum width compared to working together with the mat list. And the mat list is going to say, I need 40%, and you can have the rest. And then this guy says, I only want 100% of the 60% that's left, right? That's kind of why we have that style right here. Now notice this is actually a hard-coded style or an inline style, but we're using the Angular syntax by putting in the square brackets. And then you can put in any style name right after the dot right here if you want to use that syntax. Really up to you. Now the last thing I've changed is kind of down here where I've said I want the dens to have a flex layout of 40%, just like I said. That's kind of to get a minimum here of 40% right here. And the other thing I kind of did was I said I want it to be pushed to the left side. So push it all the way over to the image, the start, right? Start of the div. And the last thing I kind of said was I need a bit of offset right here. Now that's not even going to do that much, but it's kind of just bringing some space into the picture right here. That's all I had to do. So now I kind of made that change, and that was just to kind of get this aligned a bit prettier in my mind, and you can go play around with that if you want to make it different. That's really up to you. 40 might be a lot, by the way, so you could put in a lower value here if you want to, but I just thought 40 was perfect for me. That's the way you can kind of use the compare function inside Git. I think you guys should start using that if you kind of want to figure out what's wrong compared to the version on Git. You might find some help there. Sweet. What do we want to do next? Well, we want to kind of make this into an actual thing that I can send to the component instead of right now where it's hard-coded. Step one, let's just try and make this into an actual something that input that I can use on an image. Now this is the way we do that in Angular, right? So we just need to kind of wrap this inside a string like this, and then it actually knows that this is an input string, right? But now it's an Angular TypeScript input string, right? So that was step one. Step two, let's just cut this string. I'm Xing it and just make a new property in TypeScript called URL. I need to go to the TypeScript file now because it doesn't know anything about a URL file. So let's just add that. And that's going to be of this type string. There we go. So now we have that URL available. Now we could now in the constructor actually set the URL right here to be equal to that string. And of course, yeah, you need the this keyword. So let's just add that. There we go. Now we are back to the beginning, right? Now we just moved the functionality so that now the image is being pulled now from this URL file in here instead of actually being pulled from the string directly. That was step two. Step three, we want to add this as an input from the outside. So just put an input on top of this, and then I kind of don't want to create this right here. I'll just remove it here again and grab it and exit because I want to move it somewhere else. Now it's possible to now send this URL in as an input somewhere else. Sweet, let's try and do that. Now the owner of this guy, or the guy using this one right now, is the container. So the container will now have an input field here called URL, and for now let's just paste in the actual string right here, and there we go. So now we've just pasted the string directly into the URL here from the container. I know I've said kind of this stuff before, but I want to make another recap of it because it's pretty important stuff if you want to use the components inside Angular properly. Sweet. Of course, we can also go one step further again, and we can kind of just make this into a URL as well. So now the URL needs to be locally in this TypeScript file instead, right? So I'm just jumping down here, and I'm going to make a URL here of the type string. Again, notice you could just keep doing this as many times if you want, right? It's just components and components, so it's really up to you. And then I'm just setting the URL right here now, and that just means that the image is still there. That's all I had to do. Now notice right here, just to give you an overview, I'm setting the URL in here. That's being passed into the actual tag of the details right here. Now that's being passed into the input right here. And that's being passed right into the details HTML right here. So that's how it all works now. Sweet. So next lesson we'll have even more fun with this. See you next time. Have fun.